today I want to show you Saloon. If you don't heard about it, it's a PHP library. So it's framework agnostic. You can use it with Symfony, with Laravel, or just with PHP, with the index PHP file if you want to. And you will think, what the fuck, we don't need something like that. I know how to integrate my APIs because I have the HTTP facet and everything is working. But I was the same. And then I started a new project, the next project, and I had to integrate so many different APIs, like with Twitter, HubSpot, or whatever, and always reinvent the wheel because there's actually no real convention how to do an API integration with Laravel. So that's where Saloon comes into play. And the creator of Saloon is Sam, as you can see here. Hi, Sam, when he's watching it someday. And he's doing a lot of open source stuff, and like his biggest project is Saloon. And I stumbled on Twitter on it, and as you can see, there are now currently over 1,000 stars, so plenty of people are using it. And I was like, why are so many people using it? Is there something in it? And so I was looking like in the documentation, scrolling down, and I saw these 3 lines of code. And I thought, beautiful. And I thought, here, you're doing a connector? The connector sending in requests, and then you get just the data back? Yeah, my implementation, my abstraction looks a bit uglier than this. So I thought, why not try it out? And today I want to show you the whole power of it. And I think the best way to do it is with an example. So I prepared an example for us. So let me show you. I want to transform a PDF to a Word document because we always have to do it, or maybe sometimes. And here we have a PDF from SmashingConf. I recommend this conference, it's really good. And we want to convert this file now to a Word document. And the nice part is Adobe has a nice service that's called the PDF Service API, and we're going to use it today and try to change the PDF to a Word document. Okay, I already prepared it, so I made the console command here. As you can see, it's just a simple convert here command, and when I run it, so let's run it, PHP artisan convert, it will actually convert the PDF to a Word document. So it takes quite some time because it's pretty hard work that he got to do. And voila, it's finished. So let me show you. Now we have here a Word document. It's done. And let's watch the end result. Okay, it takes quite some time till Word is opening. And as you can see, it worked. We have a Word document from a PDF. So we can go here in and say, hello, Laravel, Switzerland. And it's working great. But how did I actually do it? Currently, I have implemented it this way. I've used everywhere the HTTP facade. And today, I want to show you Saloon, how you can actually refactor this away. And we have 5 steps that we are doing. So 5 requests we are doing to the Adobe API. First, we are creating a pre-signed URL, getting a URL back. In the next step, we are using this URL to upload the document, so our PDF. In the next step, we say what the API should do with the document, so transforming it to a Word document. Then we have always to check the status because it takes quite some time to convert the PDF to a Word document. There's some AI magic behind from the Adobe API, so it's pretty good. And afterwards, we can just download this. And I have now did 5 steps, and now I want to refactor them with Saloon. But first, I want to show you all the 5 steps that we are doing. So as you are familiar, we're using the HTTP facade and saying, hey, this is JSON. And we have always the same base URL, so we are using here the PDF service with the Adobe URL. Afterwards, we have 2 headers, one for the authorization. Don't mind here this access token helper. It's just getting a bearer token so we can communicate with the API. And we have to provide this API key here. This is some random ID that we get. If we send no ID with it, it will just fail. That's how the API is built. And then we are always throwing if something is happening. So if you got the 400 or 500 back from the server, we want to throw an exception. Afterwards, we're doing a post on the assets endpoint. And yeah, we tell it will be a PDF uploaded. So that's the first step we are doing. Afterwards, we get the signed URL back. It's somewhere here on Amazon AWS, so in a S3 bucket or something like that. And we get an ID back, so the asset ID. We are working with it later from the response. From this response we got the following things back. Afterwards, we are doing the second request. We got the pre-signed URL. Now we are uploading it. So this time we have but the multi-part. We tell it must be in PDF, attach the document. The document is here, this PDF, as we used it. Let me delete this one here, the document. And we're throwing again on using a put this time. At the next request, we have to tell, hey, now please transform the PDF to a Word document. And he's doing everything here. And one thing that I need is like the location. That's just how the API is working. In the header, I get the location back, not in the body, because I'm using the location. Then I have to transform from this part the ID out, and then I can check the status of it. Because I told the API now, hey, please transform it, but it takes quite some time. So I have a do while here. So don't be scared here. We just go line by line here. And we're setting the retry to true first. And the next step, we are again checking the API, the base URL with the same headers, with the throw, but here with the get now. And we are checking the status of the document. How is the transformation going? And if it's done, so when we get in the body, the status done back, it's finished. Then it's cool, we can download the document. If not, we're sleeping 2 seconds and then we're doing it in a loop. And yeah, that's everything that's going on. That's like the fourth step. And afterwards, we're getting here an URL back as response. As you can see, it's again on S3 on Amazon. And we are just with HTTP downloading it and storing it in the storage. Okay, I know this was a lot, and I did it quite fast. But I wanted to just show you a real-life example of what actually Saloon can do. So I had to take a bit more complex example, let's say it like that. And now I want to refactor this now a way to use Saloon and make it much more cleaner and nicer to read. Okay, are you ready for the ride? Yeah, let's go. Any questions so far? Okay. First, we need a connector. So Saloon has connector and request. And the connector is like the glue for everything. Everything that's repeated, like the base URL, I'm always calling this base URL, or the same headers are always stored in a connector. So let's first initiate a connector. So we can just use the Saloon helper here and do a connector. And next we have to pass the integration name. So we are using Adobe, so we're going to call it Adobe, and say Adobe connector. And the only thing that's doing is creating a single line, single file that's called Adobe connector. So let's open the Adobe connector, get rid of the comments here because we don't need them. And we can read it much nicer then. And as you can see, here on the right, on the File Explorer, in the HTTP folder, we have now an integrations folder. And that's pretty handy, because before, I never knew where do I put my API stuff inside, in which folder, how do I call it. And that's pretty cool. I have now a convention. I do it inside integrations. And if I have like a HubSpot integration or something, then all my integrations would lie here. And I know where I have to look inside to get all my API integrations. Okay, so let's look into the Adobe connector. First, it's extending the connector from Saloon. And let's get side by side everything. So we can use it as the HTTP facade similar. So this first is that it's accepting JSON. That's the same thing as doing here as JSON. So it's putting the header information correct. Next, we have here on the left, we have the base URL. And we can do the same here in the resolve base URL and just putting it here inside. Then we have two header configuration. This is just for authorization, so we know, hey, who is communicating with the API. So we can go inside here, the default headers, and just paste it here. Let me import this statement, and that's good. And afterwards, we can even do a default configuration, but for our purpose here, we don't need anything, so we can just delete it, and it gets a bit cleaner. So that's everything we got to do in the connector. It's like everything that's repeated on every request, we're just putting inside here. And afterwards, we're doing the request. Okay, so we can now dependency inject here our connector. No, that was wrong. This one. And we can start working on it. But the connector alone does not work because we need to send a request. Now we have to make the special request for it to create a pre-signed URL. Okay, let's go here again. We're doing the same. But this time we're doing a request to Adobe. And we call it create pre-signed URL request. Okay, let's open that. Create pre-signed URL. Let's get rid of the comments first so we can see it more clear, everything. And as you can see, we have now a new folder that's called request folder. And all the requests we are doing to the Adobe API are now stored here. So everything is in the same place and we know what we can actually do, how we can interact with the API. And as you can see, the class is pretty basic. It's just extending request. Then we tell which method it should use, get, post, put, and whatever there is. And one point for the endpoint. Okay, let's get it working. Ooh. No, like that. So the first thing we have to pass is the method. So here on the left, we're using a post. So we have to use a post as well. So let's go with post. Then we have the endpoint. Here we are using an asset. Okay, let's do that. Afterwards, we have content. And we can just do that with the default body. We can use default body here and return the content because we have to say it's a PDF. But it's one thing that you have to remember. Everything is in the documentation, so you don't have to memorize it, but you have to read at least once the documentation. If you have a body, you have to always implement the contract. And the contract is called hasBody. And with this, Saloon knows, we have a body, but what do we need to do with the body? Is it the JSON body? Is it XML body? Is it a multi-part body? It could be different stuff. And the nice part is we can use the trait here. And when you see, we can import has multi-part body, has JSON body, has XML body, and so on and so on. And for our purpose, we need a has JSON body. So it will automatically convert the body to JSON, valid JSON. And yeah, that's it that we got to do. And now we can say here, new, create pre-signed URL request. Copy, close that out. And I think we can run the conversion again. And let's see. Okay, that's the wrong. And let's see if it's working. And it did not work because I forgot something. I need to store the response here again. Okay. Nobody saw that. Let's do it again. Let's hope it this time that it's working. And it takes quite some time with the API. And the conversion was successful. When you look now here inside, in our storage, the Word document is again inside. And let's delete it and let's move on. So the second step, let's skip the second step first because it's a different kind of request that we are doing. And let's go to the third step. So as you know, we have to do the same thing again. We need to do a new request object. So let's go with Saloon request export to Word request. Okay. Yeah, thank you. I forgot the integration name. It's always 2 parameters. Thank you. Export to Word request. Let's get rid of the comments here so we can see everything better. And let's get just started. So we have a post, so we are doing a post again here. Then we have here the endpoint. Let's get the endpoint. It's pretty straightforward. Okay. And now we have a body. So let's go with the body. Let's copy it complete out. And we're doing a function, call it default body. Default body. And returning it. But now you see, we don't actually have the asset ID now inside here. But that's no problem. We can just create a constructor and put it inside here. And that's the recommended way to do it. So let me do that fast. And let's get the asset ID here. And that's how you do it. But now, because you are using now a body, we have to say what kind of body. So let's implement has body again. And as you know, we are using has JSON body. Reformat everything, and that looks good now. Now we can use the connector again. So let me copy now first this here before I forget it. And use the connector to send the new export to Word request, and we are passing it the asset ID. So let's pass it here inside. And afterwards, we need the header as well from the request. So let's get it here. Comment this everything out. Import everything, clean up, and let's run it again and hope it works. This time without any errors. So let's see. So far, any questions as long as it's converting? And tada, it worked. Okay, and I have my Word document again. So let's delete it and let's go to the next step. Yeah, we're getting here the location out. It's not interesting. And now we have the same thing to do. So we are getting a connector and we want to send something. Okay, let's do it. And now we know how this is going. So let's do a check status request, because we can now go a bit faster. And here, the nice thing is we don't have to do much because it's already in GET request. Here we are GET. And we are resolving the endpoint here. We can just grab it here out of here. And one thing we got to do is again initialize the constructor. Let's go with the constructor. Let's say here public string and location. And that's it. That's everything we got to do. And we can now here put the new export to Word request. And we have to pass the location. And we could actually remove this part, but the nice way is we can actually get rid of the whole loop with Saloon. So let me show you how you can do that. So we're doing the same, but there's a send and retry function. And this accepts 3 parameters. So we can, on the second parameter, we can say how many times should retry. So we're saying 10 times. And how many seconds? We will say 2 seconds, it should wait. Okay, and inside it, we will tell it should always fail if the status is not done. So let's go inside it. And there's a nice hook that's called has request failed. And then we can just say if it's not done. Okay, what's going on here? Okay, I'm confused. It was? Ah, it was not. Yeah. It's the wrong import. Huh? Okay, let me show the scratches. I have a backup here for everything. Okay. There's no response here. Kinda weird. Am I doing something default? Ah. It's the wrong. It's not export to Word, it's check status. Okay, sorry, I have to get rid of this. It's check status request. We are in the wrong request, so that's why it's not working. So let's go again here. Response failed, I was in the wrong request. Okay. And if the status is not done, so the body is returning, even when I get the 200 back, it will fail and retry again after 2 seconds. And that's everything we are doing here. So we can get rid of all this while loop and just refactor it away to a single line of code. So I actually like this way. It reads a bit better than the above one, I think. And the response is missing. The response is missing. Thank you. It's still the wrong request. Let's do it. I have so many eyes here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That's so good. Yeah, let's try it again. So we will see if the conversion works, if the refactor did work as expected. Yeah. Okay, it looks like it did work. So let's close this here and get rid of this here. Okay, and the last part is we are just downloading the document, and I don't think we need to refactor this away. It's a simple one-liner, so we can work with that. But the nice part is when you, with Saloon, we have here now a different request, because now this is, how can I tell it? it's not going to the same base URL as the previous request, and so we can't use just the connector for it, because when you see the pre-signed URL route is going here to Amazon S3 somewhere, and when we go inside the Adobe connector, you will see that the base URL is always pointing to adobe.io. So it's a complete different route, but we can actually work with the same way as we did before. So let's create this. So we're doing PHP artisan Saloon request and upload document request. Adobe, yeah, thank you. I should have prepared more, but I think that's cool. So we're doing here now put, so we can go with put here. The endpoint, we have to pass the whole endpoint on it. So let's get here this endpoint and go with a constructor and import that public string endpoint. Okay. And one thing we should not forget is here we have different headers that we are providing. So let's go with the headers, default headers, and use that. And we are attaching now a document that's coming from the storage. So let's put the content right inside here, so we can get the content as well out of here. And if you are using something like this now, we have to implement the body because we have a body. So let's go implement has body, but this time we are using a multi-part body. And if you go down here, now do the default body. Default body. Okay, I can't type. Now this time it gets a bit complicated because we have to use the new multi-part value. We say the document and just get the content here. And this should now work for everything. That's how you do it. You don't have to remember like I did now everything. If you're working with a multi-part body, just go to the documentation and everything is there, how to use it, to work with it. And that's pretty easy. Okay, but let's see if this works. So now we can just get the upload document request, put the upload URI inside it, copy here the storage from the document. And one thing that we want to do is actually send it, but we don't have a function here. But Saloon got us here. We can actually extend a solo request instead of the request. If you do that, Saloon knows it's a standalone request and we can do whatever we want. It's not connected with the connector, so the base URL and the default headers won't apply to it. Okay, and now with this, we can just say here, send it, and voila, we can get rid of this. Start the conversion. Let's hope it works this time without any errors. So far, any questions? No? Okay, and it looks like it worked. So we did the conversion now, and everything is happening with Saloon and no longer with the HTTP facade. That's great. So let me show here, it works. So we can change everything however we like. Okay, that's great. So let's do a quick summary of everything we did and look what we actually did. So we are doing our 5 requests, and you can see every request got its own place. When we go here inside, you will see we have an Adobe folder, and that's pretty cool because before I never knew where to put everything, and now we have like a convention where we put everything, and that's the reason why I actually fell in love with Laravel, because everything got the convention. Hey, where do I put my controllers? Where do I put my models? Where do I put my policies? Everything got its place, but API integration have no place to put them. And now with this way, we can put everything in one place. We know where we can find for every project. And as you can see, we even reduce the line of code because I don't have to think about the abstraction on my own. How do I abstract everything away in my own class? How does it work? So Saloon got me here. So I can get rid of this whole chunk of code. Then I can go down, can get just rid of this chunk of code. Go here down, can get rid of this code. Go here down and get this whole retry action as well. So I can get a lot of boilerplate code away and just reuse in different classes the same endpoints as I did before. And the thing is, I just showed you now in the 20 minutes just the tip of the iceberg what Saloon can do, because there's actually so much more going on. So now bear with me, I'm just going to show you 2 minutes the documentation. Okay. So one thing that I actually like here is that you have like data transfer objects that you can do from your request. So every request comes with a create DTO from response. And here you can already define like your DTOs. And that's pretty cool if you work with a type-safe system. So when you're doing a request, you always get like a, I don't know, a document object back. And you know this got this, all the values and stuff like that. As you can see here, we get the server response, and the ID is always an integer. Then I have a name, a string, and the IP address is string as well, and so on, so on. And everything is type-safe. And that's pretty cool. Saloon already brings this out of the box. Or one more thing is the OAuth integration. So if you're doing OAuth 2, it can be sometimes quite tricky to work with OAuth 2. I'm not sure how often you did it, but it can get really hairy. There are middleware plugins. One thing, you can record the whole response. So if you got like a big XML body that's coming back or big JSON, you can just store the whole response and work with the response again for your next test. And that's pretty cool. So you're doing just a single response to maybe an API call that's taking a few seconds, but you want to test it 10 times. You just have to hit it one time, store it, and then use it always again. And yeah, there's a lot of more stuff going on, like the cookbook, tutorials, and so on, so on. I could talk for 2 hours here, but I think you would get bored if I show you every feature. And I hope I could maybe convince you to try Saloon, because I think it's an awesome tool. It helped to streamline like my code a bit. And yeah, that's all I got for you. I hope you could learn 1 or 2 things. Thanks for joining.